Hi, everybody. Welcome to the IC Topic Chats. Today's August 22nd, 2024. What a great day. It is actually a beautiful day where I am. I'm in Boonville, Missouri, en route to Kansas. I just shared this offline with everybody a couple minutes ago. But it's a wonderful day to be an evaluator. It's a wonderful day to have our good friend Susan Wolfe, who's a longtime collaborator, supporter, one of the people I go to whenever I need anything with regards to the IC Topic Chats. She's always been super supportive, and I've been told that she can be a Cubs fan at times, which I hold against her, but she's also a Detroit Tigers fan, and so that's okay too. As long as they're in the American League, we don't pay too much attention. I am kind of a Cleveland Guardians fan these days, but that's okay. You can root for Detroit if you want to. Just don't root against the Cardinals, okay, Susan? Well, Susan's talking to us about bringing spirituality into her connection with her clients and into her independent consulting practice. So, Susan, I'm going to put myself on mute. I'm going to let you take it away.
Hey, well, this is a topic that actually Jerry Peak and I will be leading around our Birds of a Feather discussion at AEA this year as well. Jerry is my spiritual mother who introduced me to the Baha'i faith, which is what guides all of our work that we do. But I'm not going to go into that. In case, for those of you that don't know me, this is so weird. I mean, I haven't been able to come for a few months because I've been buried in work and having to not do anything that's not work related for a while. I'm finally starting to come up for air a little bit, thank goodness. But I see so many new names and it's really exciting to see this community grow like this. So hi everybody, I'm Susan Wolfe. For those that don't know me, I've been an evaluator for, now it's coming up on 39 years. Yeah, which makes me feel especially old, but I'm also in this process of sort of trying to wind down a little bit. Like next year, I want to work maybe 4 days a week or something. I'm not doing really well at it, but I'm working on it. Anyways, when we talk about bringing spirituality, go ahead and type answers into the, yeah, good luck getting back. I know I just got another person wants to meet with me today about a big evaluation. I'm like, no. But anyways, when we talk about bringing spirituality into our work, everybody just type your answers in the chat. What kind of things come to your mind? Active religion, being more grounded and curious, going to church daily, alignment with personal values, connection, values, centrality of human connection, complicated. I think of our core values, inner self, self-awareness, personal values. Yes, weird. Okay, what it means, connecting to people, the world, and God. Spirituality is connecting with other people, places, and things outside of organized religion. Yes, when I think of it, I think of, let me tell you a little bit about the work that I do. I do a lot of work around maternal infant health, and a lot of it has to deal with maternal and infant mortality. Where does the spirituality come in? Well, I work with coalitions in this space. And the spirituality comes in when we take that moment to connect that this isn't just evaluation, this isn't just data, this is about babies dying. So when we're connecting, when we're looking at data and talking about it, we should always connect. That is one part of the spirituality part, is connecting to the content of what you're doing. I always feel like if I can't really connect to the content, I don't want to do this evaluation. Or if I'm going to connect in a way that may have a bias one way or another, especially a negative bias, I'm not going to take this evaluation. So my spirituality in some ways guides what projects I'm willing to take on. I don't want to take on projects that I can't feel that connection to. And that because I'm not going to invest myself in them enough, I'm just going to go through the ropes and maybe I'm not going to put as much energy into them. The other part is when I'm working with coalitions, when I'm working with organizations, I'm a community psychologist and I do a lot of work from community perspective. It's taking that moment to connect that we're community. This is especially important when we think about doing work with that relates to equity. Equity isn't just about saying DEI and making sure we're inclusive in that. It means making those real connections that equity matters because, not because it's the right thing to do, which it is, of course, but also because we're all connected on Earth. We're part of the human race together. So equity should go much deeper than just doing the right thing and making sure my team looks good because we have a few different colors here. It's about actually bringing people on your team because you form genuine friendships, because you form some genuine relationships, and not just, well, I need to make sure I get someone of color on my team because that's the way it's supposed to be now. That's not really equity, because it's not bringing people on because you feel that they're the right person for this job. They're the person who has the special qualifications. They're the person you want to work with because you have a friendship with them or a solid working relationship, at least, that you've built with them. Not to me, that's what equity means. So even when you want to delve in and do this work from an equity perspective, there's an element of spirituality underlying that as well. It means not, I'm God, I'm going to do religion or anything. Yeah, I know I'm a former Catholic, so I understand that recovery process. But even your religion can kind of guide what you do. If you are connected to a religion and you know that your religion would not be comfortable with the content or the way something's being done, how are you going to feel evaluating it? Are you going to be able to do that genuinely and genuinely connect with that project and the people doing that project? If somewhere in the back of your head you're going, but my religion isn't good about this. So even thinking through how your religious beliefs may impact how you interact with a project is something to think about. So it's not about coming in and pushing your religion or pulling your faith on anything. It's about thinking about how your faith interconnects with content, with people, with, everything you're doing. So, and that means whatever your faith is, we should be respectful. Everybody's got a different faith, or people have no faith. And we should be respectful of that, the beliefs. But if somebody calls me and says, I am diehard Catholic, this is an organization that promotes abortion or abortion access, and I'm not comfortable working with that, then I'll say, okay, we should be okay with our peers who say they don't want to do certain work because of religious faith as well. Just because we have beliefs doesn't mean, and that's part of being spiritual, is accepting other people's spiritual beliefs and saying, okay, you feel that way. So, that's another part of connecting with your work in a spiritual way. It's connecting with your colleagues in the same way, in a way that conveys respect, in a way that cares about them. Any questions or thoughts so far? I do see a lot about organized religion. Yeah, how to treat clients and beneficiaries. Yes, inner self-awareness. And that's another part of if you're going to work in the space of equity, which is really something we should all be doing as evaluators. We should all be, understanding diversity, equity, inclusion is a critical part of us being good at our jobs. And so part of that is that deep dive into self and how do I feel about this? And, just really doing that deep dive into, have I done or said things that are racist or oppressive in some way? And if you have, just admit it and think about it and do better. When you know better, do better. That's all equity is about. It's understanding history, understanding different groups, journeys into this country, understanding what oppression is, what oppression looks like, learning all you can, and then deep diving into yourself about what role you have played in either doing it or just upholding it, maybe through silence, maybe through evaluations where your results and recommendations. I mean, I look back at some of the work I did, and I'm kind of embarrassed that I ever did that work. I was asked to do a study of Black children in South Dallas. And it was research on a community as an outsider. And back then, that was what equity looked like. It meant making sure that you're including other people in research. But it was actually horrible. And I'm kind of like embarrassed that I did that study. Fortunately, my study came out and my results were simply that the kids needed more, that community needed more opportunities for the children, that was what was wrong, and that was what was leading kids to do delinquent activity and to engage in sexual activity, was that they didn't have enough to do and they didn't have opportunities to do things because they weren't present in their community. But at the same time, just that I even did the study. So looking back and owning what you've done, what you've said, and saying, oh man, I did that. How embarrassing. I'm not going to do that in the future. Again,
So Susan, you were asking for comments, and I see something popping up that I put out there, and I see a lot of reflection around it. Is some of us who were raised in faith, particularly Christian faith, are no
yeah,
longer active in those faiths. Perhaps we don't agree with. I'll speak for myself. I don't necessarily agree with the way that church operates, but I love what I learned and how I felt about the things that we learned and the intent of the faith and what
yeah,
we learned about social justice in particular. And it's very much a part of who I am. And I'm speaking about Catholicism, and I've worked at two Catholic institutions, very Catholic, very religiously based. One was the Catholic University of America, and it was a wonderful experience, as long as you don't get too wrapped up in the rules and regulations of the faith. But man, the intent of all of it was a wonderful thing, and it's very present in everything I do now, in the way that I think about how I operate with regards to program evaluation and my clients, and what types of work I want to support with people. And so I think that's, while I don't necessarily see it as spirituality in the truest sense, I do see it as like the impact of the spirituality that I was engaged with once upon a time has had on my work today, and the way that I think about how I exist in this world with other human beings and what we can do for one another.
yeah. Yeah, I've done work with Catholic Charities, and I work with other faith-based organizations and appreciate that what they're doing. And I appreciate there are certain Catholic elements of Catholic doctrine, like we don't believe in war, believe it or not. But if you look back at that, if you really look into all of the faiths, there's an element of commonality across them. There are certain elements, especially things like virtues. I don't know of a faith that says it's okay to lie or kill, or not really. If you look at the real faith, not the whatever's happening out there sometimes in the society. But you know, we have more in common across faiths than we do differences. And so that's something that I think I'm happy to work with most faith-based organizations. I don't work. One project I recently did not pursue that I felt was one put out by the state of Texas. They were going to do, you know, they have now that they have made it illegal for women to get abortions, they're doing things like promoting marriage and trying to do programs to promote people getting married. Well, I believe in people getting married, but I don't believe in programs by the government that is trying to push an ideology on people. It's one thing to say, hey, if you're interested in marriage, we're happy to support you to learn and all that. But I don't believe in governments pushing ideology. So I didn't pursue that project because it's like, well, I couldn't comfortably do this. I couldn't comfortably support this program because I know that the underlying ideology, they're funding pregnancy centers that are fake pregnancy centers. They're giving women ultrasounds with they're not by trained medical professionals, and they're not being able to tell women if there are problems in the pregnancies. So that's kind of a fake medical thing. So I can't support things like that because I care deeply about women's health. And I can't support initiatives that might harm women's health. So things like that. Unitarian Universalist is strongly grounded in values of justice, interdependence, equity, transformation, pluralism, and generosity. Yeah. So yeah, that's awesome. So we do incorporate our spiritual values into our work. There are some work that I know that's valuable, but because I can't connect to it, I just don't feel that interested or connected to it. So I don't pursue that. I'm like, no, I'll leave that for, I'm not even going to go after that. And sometimes I get contacted and I'll send work to other evaluators who I know are happy to do that work. Borrowed the idea of religions being an ethnicity, cultural heritage to explain the way I was raised an agnostic adult in the Bible Belt. Oh my, culturally Christian. I don't think I would fit into my community, be able to relate to people without maintaining some relationship to the cultural core of my community. Yeah. In public health, it's much easier and authentic to work with people's religious, spiritual beliefs rather than to sidestep or avoid it. I agree with that. I agree that when people bring that up and it has something to do with whatever they're doing, it's best to just listen and learn and appreciate. Centered around personal values in general, not spiritual values. I think in many ways, what distinguishes spiritual values from personal or professional, I'm not sure they're totally, your spiritual values are your people values. They're your values of connection to people. The values that if you dug into whatever your faith is, those are the values. And if some people say, well, I don't have a faith, I'm an agnostic or I'm a atheist. Well, you still probably, every atheist I know still feels connection to people. I don't know any atheists that are atheists and hateful, horrible people. Atheists I know still have this sort of spiritual thinking. Maybe it's not, if you don't believe in a higher God, you do believe in at least other people. Those are the kind of spiritual. Otherwise, your values and your spiritual values in some ways guide your other values. If you think my values are based in sort of, even before I joined a faith, for many years, I didn't have a faith, but I still had sort of a sense of spiritual connection to people.
So Susan, why don't you talk a little bit about your Baha'i faith and what are some of those kind of core tenets that inform your values? I'm really interested in this because Baha'i is not one of the ones we hear about as frequently. I mean, particularly most of us are probably fairly familiar with Christianity and the Jewish faith, but I don't know that we hear as much about Baha'i. So why don't you talk about that for a little bit? Because I'd be curious about that. What are the things that you draw inspiration from and you put directly into your work?
I think the one that most influences me, there's two things. One is that we're put on this earth to our mission is sort of to create a better world. And underlying that is the belief in the oneness of humanity. That we are all, we don't, race. And if you look into the history of race and everything, all of that was made up. race is a socially constructed thing. So there is really no such thing as race. There is, however, the impact of racializing people. So racialization is real, and that's something people have done. So we can't ignore that people have been racialized. We can't say, well, there's no race. I don't see race. We do, because we see the impact of racialization on people. And that's what's real. That's the real part. That's the real impact, is the impact of what's happened when somebody made up that concept of different races. And so we believe in the oneness of humanity, and we believe in we believe that there's a role in this world that science and religion need to work together. So, when you have science, religion should guide what's ethical in the science, but religion also should respect science, because science has made our lives better. We have vaccines, we have cars to get us around, think about what life was like 300 years ago versus now. Now we live in these nice, most of us, or many of us, and that doesn't mean everybody, of course, because we know there are homeless people, but think about what our homes are like, what our, all the conveniences we have. Science has given us a better quality of life in many ways. So religion and science need to work together, because science has also created certain things that aren't necessarily good for people. Look at what's happened to the earth as a result of some of our progress. While we've made progress, we're also destroying the earth. So, so those are some of the core beliefs we have, but it's mostly all centers around this oneness of humanity idea. And the idea that we're all put on we're all people on this earth, and we should, appreciate diversity, because I think, we're kind of like, one of the things that's always, one of the sayings that's always quoted is that we're kind of like a beautiful garden. If you look across people, it's like a beautiful garden of people of all faiths, of all cultures, of all, ways of doing, thinking, being. And that's beautiful, because it gives us a chance. And that's the other part that sort of is guiding, as well as that idea that my way is not always the right way. I've learned a lot about humility from the faith. I've learned a lot about consultation and being able to step back and let other people, about letting go of ego, and not having to always be right. And I've learned, worst thing I've learned is that I'm not always right.
No, come on, Susan. You're
Yeah,
always right in my
sometimes I'm
eyes.
wrong, I've learned by stepping back. I think I've learned that lots of people do things really great, and I don't have to be the best. And it's really helped me to relax a lot about, this competition of life. It's not a competition. So I've learned to sort of sit back, let other people shine, be, and whatever. And I stay in the background a lot more lately. So I'm seeing so many beautiful ways that people are saying they bring their spiritual practices, deep sense of curiosity. I really like that.
Susan, why don't we stop the recording, and let's bring some of these voices into the
I really
conversation.
want to
There's some
hear
wonderful
them.
stuff going
Yes.
on
Thank
here.
you, Matt.
So everybody out in the YouTube world, we'll see y'all later. We're going to go to the chat function so we can encourage people to engage with this conversation. There's a lot of wonderful chats. So go ahead and stop the recording, Emily, and we'll bring some folks in.